You're listening to the Prismarine podcast, a podcast created by youths who are intrigued by the complexities of the maritime industry. This podcast is dedicated to the sharing of knowledge from different stakeholders in maritime. Each episode, we sit down with maritime professionals from various sectors in maritime as they share their valuable experiences and journey throughout their maritime careers. We also discuss current trends and future insights to the industry. We believe in the power of conversations to gain clarity, new perspectives, and a better understanding towards this dynamic industry.
Today, we are lucky to have Mr. Terence Tan from the Singapore Maritime Officers Union to share with us about why he is actually in the maritime industry. So, knowing about his background, right, he was actually a graphic designer. And right now, he has been with SMOU for the last 15 years. Right now, being an industrial relations officer and also the chairman of Young SMOU for the last 10 years. So maybe, Mr. Terence, maybe you can share with us, how, why, what happened.
Okay, so basically, I joined the union, I think, in 2005. Yeah. Then after that, I joined as a multimedia designer. I think maybe because I'm too vocal. That's why after a few years, they asked me am I interested to join the union as a full-time. So I started off with an industrial relations officer, and slowly I worked my way up, and now I'm the head of agreements units. At the same time, being involved in the union, I also engage with many youth, and that made me the ex-chairperson of the Young SMOU committee.
So, what do you actually, what is your daily, what do you do, in your everyday work as mentioned in the positions that you hold? Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I basically involved in two departments. The industrial relations, where I do a lot of negotiation of a collective agreement. I resolve grievance between ship owners and also the seafarers. Then as for the youth side, I'm actually helping the new Young SMO chairperson to actually execute the plans that they intend to do for the young people. So we organize events such as team building, engagement program. We try to link them out with different seafarers as well to build up the network. If opportunities allow, we also involve them in getting their companies to know them better.
So, as Young SMOU ex-chairperson, what was your role then?
I was the chairperson, previously. So I have to attend events, and I will have to meet up with all the different committee members to actually find out that what young people really wants, what young seafarers really wants, and how do we help them to build up their career? How do we let them feel that they are not alone in the maritime industry, but there will be an organization, there will be someone that accompany them to walk through the journey together till they come back to shore.
So in a way, your job was to be like the bridge between, like, in general, employees and employers.
Yes.
Is that right to say?
Yes. Technically, unions itself are the so-called the middleman, between the seafarers and the shipping companies. Yeah. So we want to create a level playing field for all the seafarers.
Right.
That's why we represent them to negotiate for better deals. But at the same time, we want to ensure that company are able to sustain. So we have to create the balance. Yeah.
It's also like a tripartite relation, so it's also with the government as well. You also have to ensure that you communicate with not just the two parties, right? How does that come into play?
Okay, so basically, to put it simple, union push, okay, government execute, okay, the ship owners perform. Okay, so basically it becomes this. The union will push for some initiative. Okay, for example, Singaporean call. So we push the government to do more for Singaporeans. The government will then decide, okay, they should do more and how to do it. Then the ship owners will actually come in to contribute to actually make it happen, to help the union, back to the union side, to actually get more people to join the maritime industry. So by saying that it's a tripartite effort, it's basically three different organizations representing three different areas to actually come in together to actually make things happen.
Yeah, so actually a question that we really wanted to ask, right, is that because right now we are studying maritime studies, and there was a lot of coverage on the shipping industry itself. Like the focus is all there, whether it's shipping lines, whether it's ship owners, brokers, what's their role, what they do. And also in our course, like it did cover like what the government did. So of course the Maritime Port Authority of Singapore, MPA. But here's the thing, we talk about tripartisan, but we actually never really hear much about what the union does, and specifically Singapore Maritime Officers Union. Yeah, so maybe will you care to share, why is there this gap? And of course, what is the role of SMOU then in Singapore?
So let's just start from NTUC. NTUC is the national center of all unions. So there are basically 60 over unions in Singapore. So different occupations or different jobs have different unions to represent them. See, if you say government is a body, if you say ship owners, shipping companies is a community, but there is no one representing the workers. See, so they need someone who actually gather them and become a body itself. You see, so SMOU is one of the unions that represent the maritime officers. So by saying maritime officers are those deck officers and marine engineers that sail on board a merchant ship.
Mainly the seafarers.
But by saying seafarers itself, they are also including of the ratings. You see, there is another unions that taking care of the ratings. Yeah, so there are different unions doing different jobs. So as for SMOU, okay, so basically we are trying to represent the seafarers or the officers itself, to be specific, to actually negotiate, to actually fight for a fair deal, okay, to ensure that they are well protected, well represented at their workplace, okay, to ensure that they get a decent wages, to ensure that they are well taken care, the environment is safe and comfortable for them to work. A lot of problems have been resolved beforehand. Yeah, for example, if you foresee certain things that are going to happen, for example, like retrenchment, then we are step in before it happens. Okay. If not, is for example, they have certain issues with their employers, they will usually come alone or come as a group. Then we will then deal with companies to companies separately. So this type of news this type of grievance cases may need to be create some awareness, okay, but we don't want to spread because it will create uncertainty within other industry as well. So usually we deal case to case basis.
The unsung heroes, and you can't actually promote it because they'll be kind of shooting yourself in a way.
All right, okay, because I still remember that many years back there was a conference. You see how unions should create awareness, how unions should promote ourselves. From putting out a poster of, if you are being bullied at work, you can call this number, to we provide social benefits to you. So the union nowadays they're trying to take care of you in two ways. One is how are you being represented at work? Another one is how are you being taken care after work? Because like I say, many companies in Singapore are actually very good companies. So most of the employees are well taken care at work. Only certain cases happens from time to time. So we focus a lot on how do we take care of you when you're after work. Yeah, providing welfare benefits, providing you social welfare, taking care of your parents, taking care of your families, and also how do we help you to progress in your career.
So you mentioned a lot about, so we've gone through like what the role of the union is, but maybe to the audiences out there that maybe are not in maritime or doesn't know what a seafarer job, really entails. What is the nature of the job that is so challenging, that requires, that backing from the union itself. So maybe you could briefly explain, what are some of these, challenges or hardships, a seafarer's job might entail,
Okay. First and foremost, seafarers are not covered under Employment Act. So they are not protected under the local legislation.
Why is that so?
Yeah.
Is it just like this?
It's just like this for many years.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think due to the nature of the trade, they are always out of Singapore. Yeah. And the environment and the people and the job benefit are also much more different as compared to shore staff.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, this is why they are not covered under Employment Act, but they are covered by another act. Okay, another act which is the Merchant Shipping Act, MLC. Okay, where they are actually will sort of list out the minimum benefits that they should get. Okay, we list out their rest hour as well. But we have to take note that every countries deal with seafarers differently. Yeah. They are the invisible workforce.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered that how your apples, your drinks actually came about and how they are put on the table?
Hardly.
Yeah, most of the people hardly realize that actually they are transported by ships that come in on that enter into the port, and then they transfer the goods to your table. You see?
Many might think like it's a very simple operation, just moving stuff from one place to
We
another.
think logistics is something that just
Yeah.
the airplane, and they'll think of air freight more than ships sometimes.
Correct, but air freight is much more expensive. So your apple may have limited quantity and may cost 3 times or 4 times as much as transported by ships.
So maybe you can go on and you can share with us what are some of the challenges that you've faced. I mean, you've briefly mentioned some of these challenges, as a union, and how it's working in the background. But in your line of job, is there any difficulties or like challenges? You have to negotiate, and you're always working middleman between so many different parties. Is there I would assume that you're really good at negotiating and bargaining. Is there any challenges in the area that you faced?
Okay. Maybe I divide into challenges into two parts. Okay. By, let's say, collective agreements, when we negotiate a deal for seafarers, we also have to take note that seafarers itself is not just Singaporeans. They have to compete with many other nationalities outside Singapore.
Right.
So to create and make Singaporeans attractive, okay, we have to balance their qualifications, their salary compared to other countries as well. So when we do negotiations, we must make it that it still look attractive to hire Singaporeans. But at the same time, they are not losing out compared to foreigners. So the other way is seafarers itself. Okay, so when we deal with seafarers, we have to take note that not everything is black or white in a contract. Okay, we have to create the balance between the shipping companies and the seafarers. Okay, to ensure that my seafarers are not being bullied at work. But at the same time, I need to make sure that company are able to sustain, because there are many other Singaporeans that working in the company. Yeah. So when we resolve cases for our members or seafarers themselves, we usually look at their contract to see what is right and what is wrong. If it's unfair, then we will let the company know. Then at the same time, we guide the company how to make it better. Yeah, to help our seafarers. So by helping them to resolve cases such as unfair treatment, dismissal, or even unpaid wages. So these are the more common ones during pre-COVID time.
Yeah, so we're just curious also, like, what are some of the challenges that you face, being working between so many different parties, the seafarers and the shipping companies, even government? How do you actually manage these challenges?
Yeah, and like we understand that because the ships are at different ports at different timings, so will you be awake at like 3 a.m. receiving calls? Is that a thing that you have to face as well?
Sometimes we do get calls from overseas at wee hours. But the good thing is that most of the seafarers, they actually know that we are linked to international federations. So at most of the ports, okay, we have inspectors. Okay, so they will actually call the inspectors at the port itself. So the time zone will be more accurate. Then of course, when there are times, they will be like, they contact us and we are unable to get back to them. Then we will find out that where this ship is going to the next port. You see, then we will try to engage the government over the other side or the unions over the other side to help us to look into the case. Okay. But as for Singapore flagships, okay, although the ships are moving, the seafarers are always traveling from one port to another port. But the companies are still in Singapore.
Right.
Yeah. So whenever there's issues or there's a problem, when they forward it to us, we can actually take up with the companies locally. But for companies that are located overseas, then we will forward the case to the International Transport Workers Federations to ask them to pass to the union over the other side. Okay, then they will help us to look into the case and engage the company locally over there.
Wait, so if you flip it around, does that mean you have to take care of other ships in Singapore also?
Yes. Okay, because as an affiliate to ITF, okay, which is the International Transport Workers Federation, they basically cover all seafarers, regardless of which country, regardless of nationality. So basically, when the ship entered into Singapore, okay, and if they are not our members, but they are seafarers, we will still help them.
So in essence, we can say that for SMOU, your focus are, of course, Singaporeans, seafarers, but you do have to keep an eye out for actually all seafarers.
Okay, to make it this way, we basically take care of Singaporeans because of Singaporean core, because they are our own citizens. We also take care of foreigners that working on board a Singapore flagship.
Oh.
Okay, then because like I say, we are affiliated to an international federation, right? We're taking care of foreign seafarers that working on board a foreign flagship.
So almost at every angle, SMOU is covering seafarers.
Yes.
But how you approach is different in a way.
Okay, the easiest to solve is of course Singaporeans working on board Singapore flagship. A little bit more harder to solve one will be foreigners working on board a Singapore flagship because they may be governed by their own local legislation. The hardest to assist and to solve will be foreigners working on board a foreign flagship because the company may be located somewhere in Greece, in Europe, or in US. Then it will be harder for us to reach out to them.
I see.
So in your years of experience, then do you have met with any cases that cannot be resolved, or you had issues with negotiating or coming to terms with the companies themselves, the shipping companies?
Prior to this, I remember you said you were the best negotiator.
Okay, I try my best. I try my best whenever I can. I always think of ways to help. Okay, let's talk about Singaporean seafarers first. Okay, of course there will be times where you find that seafarers are in the fault, or company is not in the fault.
Yeah.
Then how do you continue to help this group of seafarers? You see, you cannot just let them know that, hey, you are not right, and therefore I help the company. No, but you must think of ways to minimize the damage, to actually help them to gain something out of it. But at the same time, you must let them learn what is wrong and what is right, so that they can continue their employment at the next company. Okay, I remember that a few years back, a group of local seafarers was being retrenched by a local company. I think there was about 18 of them. Most of them are about above 60. Yeah, so it is near to impossible that they will be able to get another new job in another company. So we first have to understand that why they are being retrenched, and is the company doing well or not. Then after they are retrenched, right, then we look at their contract, then we find that there is no retrenchment benefits. So we had to negotiate with companies. Okay, things that are written in a contract is much easier to resolve. Things they are not, then we have to fight on moral background. We have to fight on compassionate ground. Okay, so that every seafarer still can gain something out of this retrenchment exercise. Okay, but at the same time, we have to ensure that these 18 of them, once they left and the company pay retrenchment, we ensure that company are able to sustain to continue their business as well, so that jobs are still there for Singaporeans. Yeah,
You must strike that balance.
we always have to find the balance. Always have to find, and this is how company can sustain and seafarers gain something out of it. Yeah. Some of the cases which are, like you say, that I cannot help is when the ship enter into Singapore, when we try to help, and before we can link everything out together, the ship is forced to leave. Okay, to the other ports, or the owners actually force the seafarers to go out of Singapore. Then this we have limitations. Yeah.
So in that case, you also can't catch the ship in the next port, or forward it to the next authority.
Okay, then I won't call it a challenge. Okay, we ever have these companies that I think they have 7 ships. Okay, so one of the ships entered into Singapore, and because of unpaid wages, we arrested the ships. Okay, then I think news spread very fast, so it was spread to the next few vessels. Yeah, so they contacted us as well. One by one, we actually asked the ship to sail to Singapore. Okay, so once they enter into Singapore water, we can arrest them. Those ships that are unable to sail to Singapore, we will, like I mentioned, we will engage the union over the other side to actually assist them. Yeah, so I think we managed to arrest four vessels. Yeah, and then managed to get crew paid.
I see.
Yeah. So you wherever we help crew like this, right? When they are able to get back their wages, you can see the smile on their face. You can make them feel that I got my pay and I can go home. See, because at the end of the day, they may not be paid for a couple of months and the family are waiting for their money. Yeah. So for foreign seafarers, usually only the seafarers are working and the family itself are actually rely a lot on him. Yeah. So if he's stuck on board the ship, if he is the only sole breadwinner, then the family will be in trouble.
I see. So maybe we bring it back to a bit of the local context. So we were wondering also, I guess from what you have shared is that you also need certain maritime background knowledge. So for anyone who's interested in actually going into the maritime industry, and maybe for those who are more passionate about like unions, what characteristics can one should have to be able to get to maybe where you are?
You must be passionate. You must be thick-skinned enough, okay, to talk to companies, and you must understand. Usually, I would tell people that you must have a lot of common sense in being a unionist, because being a unionist, there's no a book that to guide you to be a unionist. A lot of things that you need to learn and gain experience through daily context.
Actually doing it.
Yes, on job training, they call it. So the longer you stay in the union, the more you can gain, the more knowledge you can gain. And of course, the union itself, be it SMOU or any other unions, we will usually send our staff for course to understand how a union works, how a union should do on certain cases, how to resolve conflict and grievance. Yeah. And last and foremost, you must have a caring heart for the workers that you are representing.
I see.
Yeah, passion, I think, for as a unionist yourself as well, is definitely, I think, one of the key factors that I'm hearing that is needed, for anyone that aspires to be part of this.
Yeah. Is that why you switched over from a graphic designer? Or is it because you like to talk?
When I was asked to join the union, because I see a lot of unfair treatment. Okay, that was my first thought when I joined. But after I joined, I take it that there are a lot of different type of challenges in this job. It's not like a 9-to-5 job where every day you are doing the same thing. You will meet challenges every day. This problem, basically, I take it as a challenges for me. I treat it like competition. I treat it like a problem that I need to resolve.
Yeah.
I challenge it. And whenever I solve a case, I feel a lot of self-satisfaction, and I feel that I make some changes to the life of the one that I help. So as time goes by, it become a norm within myself.
Yeah, and because every case is also different, so the gratification when you get from solving it is also always renewed. Right? It's not
It's always a new thing.
Yeah.
It's always a new challenge, and it always crack your brains.
So for those who find life a bit too boring, join the union.
That's
Add
true.
colors to your life.
Yeah.
So we've talked also about the union, some of the traits, personalities. But I think also important, for our viewers to also know, if although you have not been a seafarer yourself, but what are some of the characteristics also, and what is with regards to if anyone that aspires to be having a profession as a seafarer.
First and foremost, they must pass the interview, of course. Okay, so once they pass the interview, of course, then we will assess them. Usually people that can stay long within this industry, they have a heart to help people. They have to take their career path into a different kind of role. For example, working in the union is very different from working in NMC. Yeah. So working in a union is not about money. It's not about career path, but it's about helping people gather their voice to make changes. But working in companies is more on career progression. That is the big difference between these two. So yeah, that's it. As long as you are willing to help people, you can join the union. And then through the job, you gain a lot of experience when you deal with the cases.
And actually, so because again, back to your background of being a graphic designer, right? Does it actually, give you a disadvantage when you decide like, oh, I want to stay in SMOU, or would a maritime background actually help? For those who maybe are not in maritime to actually want to come into the industry. From your own opinion, what do you think?
To be a unionist?
Yeah.
If you have maritime background, it definitely helps the industry or the union a lot, because you first understand what a seafarer's been through. But if you don't have a maritime experience or background, then you will work extra hard as a seafarer. Okay, you have to read up more, you have to listen to them more, then you can experience, by visiting them, by going on board the ship for a couple of days, to learn the life of a seafarer. Then another thing is that how I gain experience on understanding them is I engage with them. So I always hear all their fun part and all the not fun part. Then how do they deal with certain cases? Then I also learn from my mentor. I also learn from my bosses, as they have been the seafarers in the past. So through that, you will actually increase your knowledge along the way. Yeah.
I see.
And maybe perhaps regarding, because currently, the maritime industry is moving ahead with, the digital transformation, and continuously companies in this industry would like to also attract new talents, people of diverse backgrounds, of the younger generations. Is there anything that SMOU itself have been doing, to actually, promote seafaring as a profession for this younger generation?
Okay, since 2010, SMOU has been training Singaporeans to take on this career as their main. So we provide a job change, or I would say an opportunity for any Singaporeans that willing to switch their career from a shore-based job to a seafaring job.
Well, that's quite rare.
Yeah, so basically they will go through a training of in total 3 years. Okay, then they will be a full-fledged officers when they can continue to their career path on board the ship. So it will take about, I think, fast will be around 7 years for them to become a captain. Okay. Then once they are captain, they actually earn quite a good salary. But what we have been doing is that how do we accompany them throughout this whole journey, because 3 years in school, 7 years at sea. As we all know, that seafaring job is not an easy job. It's a very tough job, but with very good returns.
In the long run, actually.
In the long run. Yeah, so all the seafarers, all the young seafarers that I encounter or I came across, after 10 years of sailing or even lesser, okay, all of them getting a 5-digit jobs on shore. See, from a person which only with diploma background and they are willing to endure, okay, these 10 years, it will be a life-changing experience for them, and then back to shore again. Because let's say you are 20 years old and you go out to sea and you manage to come back at 30. At 30 years old, you may be earning more than 10,000. It's a very good money for them as well.
So I'm hearing it's not just only, I mean, of course there are, hardships and challenges as a seafarer, but this balances out because, the returns, say if you do transition to shore base, there are actually a lot of career opportunities and actually progression as a seafarer, So we'd like to also move on to talk about the current situation, with the COVID-19. What is how has SMOU, how has it, affected SMOU, or what has changed, and how has SMU adapted to these, crisis itself?
Okay, the whole pandemic situation has changed the way that we used to work. Okay, talking about the industry itself first. Okay, a lot of things has changes for them. We are lucky that the ships are still moving as compared to many other industry.
Definitely,
Yeah, but one major challenge that they are facing right now is about changing of crew. Okay, due to the port restriction or global travel restriction, many of the seafarers, after they completed their contract, they are unable to sign off. The new seafarers that are going to join ships are unable to travel. So this created a status quo scenario where new crew are unable to sign on, old crew are unable to sign off. So the crew on board continue to work way past their contract. Some can be up to a year, some can be even longer than that. Okay, then let's look at SMOU itself. Okay, so we know that crew are unable to travel, crew are unable to join ships. So we have a big group of Singaporeans that are unable to join ship. Right? So when they are unable to join ships, technically they don't get any salary. Okay, so for months they are not getting any salary or pay. What we can do for them is that we have been engaging companies to say that whenever there is an opportunity, okay, please give to Singaporeans first. Number one. Then number two, we try to find alternative for them. Okay, we try to talk to other companies, because if the new crew is unable to join ship, where can you get the crew from? From local workforce, right? So those ships that come into Singapore and they need to do the crew change. But if, let's say, a Filipino is unable to come to Singapore to join ship, then who can you ask? The Singaporeans. So we try to link them out, try to link this group of seafarers to different companies so that it create job opportunity for them so that they can continue to get their earnings. Okay. Alternatively, we try to find jobs on shore for them. For example, safe distancing ambassador, swabber, things like that. So that they can tie through a short period. Last but not least, we try to work together with governments. We try to ask the government saying that when the government to come up with a package, okay, to pay them or to provide a subsidies for them to tie through a few months. Yeah, so we are very lucky to have very good government that they are willing to work with us. So they contributed a big sum of money together with the unions to provide a allowance for all the seafarers over the last 3 months.
And I think all this is easier said than done. I can really imagine the first 2 points you're saying, getting employers to hire Singaporeans, right? Or even ships to get Singaporeans on board. The first thing I thought was the pay difference right then and then. I would assume that Singaporeans would want a higher pay as compared to foreigners. And that on its own, it's a big issue really.
Okay, not just Singaporeans want a higher pay than foreigners, but I would say everyone take this as an opportunity because you don't know when is the next ship that you are going on board. So with the increasing demand of local seafarers, many companies without say are willing to pay more to get the workforce. Yeah, so indirectly, they does have a pay increase lah.
I see. Okay, so actually one last question that I would like to ask is, in the next 5 to 10 years, let's imagine that the pandemic is over and solved. What challenges do you see yourself trying to solve, as a unionist? Yeah, like besides the everyday issues that you're already solving, what new problems do you foresee might actually come up?
Yeah, perhaps also with like the current state of like digitization, how does it actually affect like seafarers or SMOU itself? How would it, like what Lennon said?
A couple years ago, we actually did a study on this. We found that if technology comes in, will seafarers' job be replaced?
Right.
Okay, so we understand that I can't speak for the whole industry itself. Okay, based on my own opinion and my own experience. In the past, a ship can have 40 to 50 people.
Right.
Their port stay can be 1 to 2 weeks. But as technology changes or new technology coming in, they reduce to about 20 to 22.
Right. Yeah.
The port stay is less than a day. You see? So when we look at the current situation, we understand that COVID has created a lot of destruction in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, it created a very deep impact on chain supply. Sorry, I would say supply chain. Okay, but at the same time, it creates an opportunity for us to get out of our comfort zone and start pushing for things that may happen 10 years later. That is technology. They accelerate the speed of technology, Internet of Things, big data in a very short period. Yeah, so many companies are already looking or already into it to make decision making faster, to make the impossible possible, to make to reduce the manpower, and of course the last thing is to continue shipping without having the seafarers staying on board. You see? So what we can see is that maybe in the next 10 to 20 years, you can see that seafarers, due to COVID, with all the technology coming in, seafarers no longer need to stay on board, but they can be at home managing the ship.
Wow.
You see? Because we understand that many shore organizations, they are, for example, MPA, what we call smart port.
Right.
Okay, many crane operators are now managing the crane in the office. Or I saw some videos that some of them are actually managing at home. So moving forward, this may be the thing that for seafarers. See? Then we have to take note that by that time, is union still relevant or not? You see? So we have a very deep thinking saying that the group of people that we got to represent, the job is the same. The title will be different. Yeah. So we have to continue to ensure that even the title is different, but how do we represent them?
Yeah.
How do we ensure that technology is here to make their job easier and not to replace them? Yeah. So in order also to ensure that this group of people are able to control the ship at home, they must have certain set of skill. Right now, they most likely they must be a seafarers in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can continue to represent this group of people.
Yeah.
We have to start to push and to get in touch with them before other unions take it. Yeah. But I believe that as time become better, the things that the union will do will also change. Yeah. We have to find opportunity. We have to find the link between us and employee. Just like NTUC now, NTUC used to represent the workers, and now they are representing the PMEs. Because the workforce change,
Correct.
the unions change. It's
Correct.
the same for us as well.
Yeah. So actually, it's also a transition from maybe in the past you were trying to protect jobs. Now you are trying to protect the work-life balance, and in the future, that is where you might be going into. So a change in job scope, I would say. You know.
A change in relevancy and a
Relevance.
change of the benefit that we can provide to attract people to join as member.
Yeah. So actually, that's all the
Time that we have.
yeah.
Thank you, Terence, so much for being part of this podcast. Yeah. So if the audience would like to find out more about Terence Tan, you can find out more about SMOU as well in the description, the links in the description below. Yeah. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.